Man, I wish it was cold outside because in today's video, I'll be reacting to my second Scary Storyteller channel, and it's Shining Gold Tales. And the video I'll be reacting to is 3 True Scary Winter Horror Stories. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
I live in a really small town in Finland. Roughly 300 people live there.
Oh, wow.
They're mostly workers at nearby factories and elderly people. In the summer, our town is busy with tourists and other travelers.
Would like to say, I know you guys had to brace for harsh winters in Finland because you're right near the Arctic Circle. But I know it gets busy with tourists from people that like to travel to look at Finland's historical stuff, including the Santa Claus house in Rovaniemi, Finland. But I know that would be a country that everybody likes to go to look at the northern lights and enjoy the winter scenery. But anyway, let's continue with the story, see what happens next.
This story happened in the winter, and in the winter, the place is a total ghost town. I worked in our town's pub as a bartender, and despite the quiet winters, we would always keep the pub open so people would have a place to spend time and not get lonely. It was a normal Friday night, quiet and cold. There were a few local customers playing some tunes from the jukebox and having some drinks. I was keeping the fire burning in the fireplace. Winter had just started, and we were discussing when the snow would start falling. The night went well, and not surprisingly, probably 1 hour before closing, it started to snow really heavily. I closed the pub as usual, and after I cleaned up, I started to do some paperwork.
Well, I'm glad that this pub was still open for people to come in, because usually if it's hectic, snowy outside, people don't want to leave. They're probably bored out of their mind at home, but of course, if the snow starts falling, people want to get home quick before it gets too hectic to where you can't drive or walk in. I'm glad that they also had a fireplace to keep that pub warm, because if a blizzard knocks out the power, they would be freezing.
It was around 3 a.m., and the pub had been closed for about an hour. Suddenly, I heard a really loud banging coming from the pub's staff door. It was like somebody had a life or death emergency, and I went beast mode right away. I didn't know what to do or what it was. I went closer to the door when I heard a man's voice. "Please help me. Open the door. Is there someone in there?" the man cried. I was forced to do some fast thinking to decide what it could possibly be. I realized that it could be a trick to get me to open the door so someone could rob our pub, since it was far away from everything.
That's probably what's happening right now. And sometimes people get tricked into opening up the door if somebody needed help really bad, and then you got a weapon pulled on you. But you never know, this person might really need help. But let's just see.
On the other hand, it could be someone in real danger.
Exactly.
Maybe someone was being chased by a bear or a wild boar. I decided to grab my trusty baseball bat that I keep behind the bar counter, and I went to open the door. As soon as I did, a man literally rushed through me inside the bar, and then the first thing I did was close the door behind him. I didn't want anything else to come in. I immediately recognized the man as one of the locals. He never came to our bar, but I know that he had a really bad alcohol problem. I instantly noticed that he didn't have any shoes, gloves, or a hat, just normal clothes that you would wear at home.
Okay, this guy might have been drinking at home and he's lost his mind, or was kidnapped and he ran away from somebody. But man, I know he'd be having frostbite on his feet and hands if he didn't enter that pub to warm up quick.
And it was absolutely freezing out. He couldn't have lasted more than 10 or 15 minutes out there the way he was dressed. He started rambling so fast that I didn't understand a word he said. I tried to calm him down enough so that he could organize his thoughts. He was speaking a mile a minute, and I needed him to slow down. Then he told me this. Rubber faces. They're chasing me. Please help me," he blurted out. Of course I thought the guy was just drunk, but still something in his eyes told me that he was actually scared for his life, and it really gave me the creeps. I couldn't see outside very well, Snow was still heavy, and it was dark, since there were no streetlights. I tried looking out from every window, but like I said, there were no streetlights, and it was really dark everywhere, so I couldn't see anything. I actually knew a woman who was a very good friend of the poor guy, and I decided to call her. She answered, and I told her that her friend was pretty messed up at the bar. Then I asked her if she could come and pick him up. She agreed, and told me she would be right there. I knew it wouldn't take long, because she lived right next to the pub. The guy just kept rocking back and forth in a chair, and mumbling about the rubber faces, and how they would hunt him down. After a few minutes, the woman walked in. She told me that the guy had pretty strong medication, and he probably hadn't been taking it.
He probably might be going insane if he won't take his medication. But I'll be shocked if there's actually people with stuff over their face that looks rubberish that were probably going after him for real. If that's the case, make sure they get out of there, lock the pub up, and you go home before anything bad happens.
She also told me that she would take the guy to her place for the night, since she lived closer, and the heavy snow made the roads dangerous. I was happy that it was over. It was a little creepy, but not a huge deal. I finished the paperwork and got ready to go home. I was still thinking about that guy and the rubber faces that he kept rambling about. It made me feel pretty nervous, because the apartment where the guy lived was near my house. I decided to take the bat and flashlight with me, because it was dark. When I got to the road next to the pub, I was watching my surroundings very closely, because there was deep forest on both sides. Then it happened. I noticed the footprints in the snow. My heart skipped a beat, and I panicked. There were footprints that led to the pub, and then 3 distorted pairs of footprints that looked like they had been following the first ones. Then I heard a loud sound. It was like the snapping of a branch, but much louder than any I had heard before, and it came from the forest nearby. I looked around for a second or two, then started to run like the wind. I haven't run so fast in a long time. Flakes of snow bombarded my eyes with each step. I was blinking constantly to keep from going blind. I ran the whole way home and never looked back. This story still scares me to this day. I still don't know what those footprints meant and what was in the forest, but I do know that everything wasn't right that night, and I'm happy I never met the things that made the last 3 pairs of footprints.
It was probably the things that were chasing after that dude. So that proves that he won't crazy. But I'm just glad that nothing came out of the woods to attack this person. But that'll be creepy to hear that you see one set of footprints and then you see 3 others following that set of prints. Then I'll be wondering why were they chasing to begin with. But luckily you don't have to find out about it since you made it home. So let's get to story number 2.
This is a really creepy thing that happened to me when I was a student. I had a small apartment to myself on the ground floor of a large building. My bed was right next to the window, and it faced the road, but it was a fair distance away. There was about 100 yards of grass and trees separating me from the noise of the street. It actually was a really nice location. It was winter, though, so the grass was covered with about a foot of snow. I was on the northeast, so the snow could get pretty wild. My building was right next to a lake, and because of that, the wind was often really strong as well. The snow combined with heavy winds was often enough for me to question my decision to move there.
Yeah, I know sometimes people move into apartments or houses near lakes. The wind can really pick up. I mean, I'll be scared to even move out that way if the water rises. You don't want to be dealing with flooding near your house. But strange noises from the wind hitting against your apartment or just the apartment settling itself would make anybody jumpy.
Like I said, I was a student at the time, so I was on a budget. My building was not the nicest place. Things were always breaking, and it had a generally run-down feel, but the price was right. There was a utility box right outside my window, attached to the exterior wall. I think it had some kind of controls for the sprinklers or something. It was made of metal, and the door was on a hinge on the front of the box, and it was supposed to be locked, but it was broken. Sometimes it would fly open from the wind and crash against the wall outside my window, making a loud noise that would wake me up sometimes. That happened one night, and I went out there to tie it closed with a piece of string around the latch. Not the most secure solution, but it seemed to hold. I was tired and just wanted to get to sleep, so I figured it was good enough. Fast forward to a few weeks later. It was a Saturday night, and it was snowing really heavily. I was happy that I didn't have to leave my apartment. I spent the evening watching YouTube videos and occasionally reading a few lines from one of my textbooks. I looked out the window and saw the trees swaying wildly in the heavy wind. When I saw that, I was even more thankful that I didn't have to go out. I went to bed at around midnight and fell asleep soon afterwards. In the middle of the night, though, I woke up. There was a banging noise outside my window. I was still half asleep and confused, but when I came to my senses, I realized that it must have been that box again.
Oh yeah, that would make me mad as hell if you're either trying to sleep during a rainstorm or a snowstorm like this, and you just got done watching videos or listening to music to calm your nerves. You'll start to feel sleepy, but then a loud noise has to wake you up. I'm like, oh, come on. Who or what is doing that?
I cursed under my breath when I realized I was going to have to go out in the snow to fix the door. It was either that, or I would be woken up every time a strong wind came to blow that metal door into the wall. I took a long breath, savoring the last moment of warmth in my bed while I mentally prepared myself to go out there. I got up and turned on the lights, then I grabbed the first shirt and pants I could find. I grabbed a few twist ties from my kitchen, hoping it would be enough to keep that box closed for the night. I put on my boots and coat, then headed out the side door of my building. The cold winter wind bit my exposed face, and the snow flew into my eyes, making it hard to see. I inched around the corner of my building, my eyes watering from the cold. When I made it to my window, I looked up and saw the metal box, but something was wrong. The door was still closed. I took a closer look at it, and I noticed that it was still secured with my prior fix. The door was tied closed this whole time. I stood there confused for a minute, then I looked around at the snow surrounding my feet. There were fresh tracks of footprints leading from the road to where I stood. Someone was out here, and it was recent. Those footprints would have been covered up in a matter of hours with the weather that night. It wasn't long before I realized that somebody was trying to break into my window. I figured that when I turned on my light, that must have scared the burglar away.
I knew it. It had to be somebody trying to break inside the house. They probably thought that nobody was there and figured they can break in to escape the storm, but also steal something. But since they saw someone was there when you turned the light on, they left. I would just shut the door, lock it.
I took one last look around, trying to find the culprit. It was no use, though. The snow was way too heavy. I could only see 20 or 30 feet in any direction. When I got back into my apartment, I grabbed my blanket and slept on the couch in the living room. I was way too creeped out to sleep in my bed next to that window again.
And I don't blame you for that, because you hear a noise near the window and you found out it was somebody out there trying to break in. I wouldn't want to sleep right near the window again myself, because you never know if that guy might try to do it again.
The next morning, the weather had cleared, and I went back to take a look at my window. In the daylight, there was noticeable damage to my frame. Somebody was trying to pry it open that night, and there was no doubt. I reported the incident to my landlord, but I don't think they did anything about it. Whoever the person was that tried to break in, they never came back. But every time I would hear a noise from outside, I would get really scared. This happened when I was around 12 years old.
Okay.
I grew up in the suburbs of a major city, and we got a lot of snow in the winter. That was great because there were a lot of things to do. There was a small ski hill near my house, and I always got a season's pass. There was also a really great toboggan hill nearby. It was actually a farmer's field in the warmer months. We would see cows grazing there in the summer, but in the winter, it was empty, and the owner didn't mind letting the neighborhood kids use it for sledding. Our neighborhood was considered really safe, but there had been word going around that there was some kind of a creeper hanging around.
Yeah, first of all, that is nice that the farmer would let the neighborhood kids play in that field during the winter, but that would be kind of disturbing to hear that there's a creeper on the loose.
My teachers and parents never gave us any details about who it was or what he supposedly did, but they did tell us that he drove a white car, and that if anybody approached us, we should tell an adult.
Yes.
On a Saturday afternoon, it was snowing really hard. Despite that, my friend Martin and I decided to go sledding at the hill. He lived a few doors down from me, and we would hang out often. We figured that the heavy snow would scare off most of the other kids who would crowd the hill on the nicer days. The place was about a 15-minute walk, so we made our way there, carrying our cheap plastic sleds. When the hill came into sight, we were happy to see that it was completely empty. We had the place to ourselves. We ran up the hill to the first time, full of energy and excitement. The snow was falling hard by the time we got to the top, but we were still just barely able to see the road that ran across the bottom of the field, which was at least half a mile away by then. There was not a lot of traffic. It was a quiet neighborhood, and the heavy snowfall would act as an additional deterrent to anybody who wanted to go out that day. I did, however, notice a white sedan drive past the hill while I was looking down. I didn't think much of it at the time, though.
You should have remembered I would be trying to duck and hide for cover in order for that guy not to see me, and just call it quits on sledding down that hill that day and go find an adult and tell him what you saw. My nerves would be jumping at that point.
Martin and I slid down the large hill, and when we got to the bottom, he blasted me with a snowball to the side of the head. I was facing back in the direction of the hill, and Martin was facing the road. I got off my sled and made a snowball ready to get him back, but as soon as I looked at Martin's face, I could see that something was wrong. He slowly lifted his arm and pointed towards the road over my shoulder. I was hesitant to turn around because I thought it might be a trick so that he could get me with another snowball. But when I looked at his face again, I knew he was serious. I turned around and looked towards the road. The snow was even heavier than before, but I could still manage to see a white car stopped in front of the field. It very much fit the description of the car that we were warned about, and we were all alone out there. Our parents weren't expecting us back for hours. The scariest part, though, was that there was a man in a red coat walking towards us. Martin was still frozen in fear, but I sprung into action. I quickly grabbed my sled and started walking back up to the top of the hill. The man was coming in from the road, and there was only one way out through a small opening in the fence. It would have been impossible to get past him. When we made it to the top of the hill, we could see the man was standing at the bottom, as if he was waiting for us to come down. What he may not have known was that there was a way out from the top. There was a new housing development on the other side of the hill. It was basically like an empty construction site at the time. Martin and I squeezed through the fence and made our way back to the road. We decided to go straight home after that. I walked as fast as I could to get there, and when I did, I told my parents what happened. I never found out what happened to that guy, but I never saw him again. I'm pretty sure that it was the guy that we were warned about, but I can't be sure. What else could that guy have been doing there, just standing at the bottom of the hill? He had no kids with him, and he was definitely too old to be going sledding.
You're right. What else would he have been doing there? That proves that he was the creeper, because he didn't have no kids with him, and he was way too old to be sledding, and he was walking towards you. So thank God them boys did the right thing to climb back up the hill and go through that construction site just to get back to their house, because that guy apparently didn't know about that entrance before them to leave quicker. But hopefully once you told your parents, they contacted the police and they'll keep a lookout in that area for him. But I hope they did find him and arrest him. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Shining Gold Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Court channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. That's a wrap, and that's Dave home.